Hi, my name is Brian Cherry. I manage the block development for Dell EMC. What I'd like to talk to you today is about a deep dive, the things that we've done in the last 12 months for vBlock development. We'll start here with the portfolio. So at the entry side of the portfolio, we have the vBlock VxBlock 240, which is based upon VNX. And then we have in the mid-range space, we have the vBlock VxBlock 340 and 350. The 340 is based upon VNX, and the 350 is based upon the Unity array. Then up from that, we have the VxBlock and VBlock 540, which is based upon the Isilon storage family. Then at the high end of the scale, we have the vBlock VxBlock 740, which is based upon the Symmetrics array, which we've introduced a lot of all-flash around this year. So those are our core platforms. And then we have technology extensions. Technology extensions enable us, or you, to help extend and increase the amount of use cases you can support. So where you have requirements around compute or storage, you can leverage tech extensions to support those incremental use cases. So, we'll talk a little bit about the flexibility. Flexibility in our systems. We have multiple platforms that you can leverage to provide the functionality you need in your data centers. And then from a scalability, within each of the platforms, we have the ability to scale and grow in all segments: compute, network, and storage. So on the compute, you could add servers, you could add domains. On network, you have an option of switches that you can leverage, from those high-end departmental switches to director class switches for those very large environments. And then to future-proof your environment, you have the upgrade and the upgrade capabilities, and also you have the tech extensions, which provide that increased use for future-proofing against other use case requirements. So now we'll step into what's new. So now we're going to talk about the last 12 months of development, and we're going to break that down into three focus areas: core components, where we're going to talk about servers and compute infrastructure, and then the network devices. Those are things that span across all the platforms. And then we're going to talk about storage arrays, which would be unique to platforms. After we finish up on the core components there, then we're going to step into new features. New features, we'll talk about some of the network capabilities, both hardware and some of the software introductions that we've had. And then we'll round out that section talking about platform changes, the introduction of the new vBlock 350 and changes to the 540. And then we'll step into the management options that we've introduced over the past year, with a focal point around the scalable AMP. So for core component updates, here, with compute, we work very closely with Cisco UCS, where we're managing to the tick-tock effect of Intel. And the recent release has been a tick release. That tick release is the Broadwell release. It's recognized by the V4 series. So it's the follow-on to the Haswell release, which was a V3, which was a TOC release, which is a microarchitecture. So the benefits of the tick release are going to be increases in core counts, increases in onboard memory cache, and then also higher speed RAM that it will support. In addition to that, we have a new introduction of the fabric interconnects and fabric extenders for UCS. We've introduced a family of FIs that will support 40 gig bandwidth and 16 gig fiber channel. Those are for high bandwidth compute markets. Then we'll step into the networking, and we'll talk about some of the updates on the SAN switches, and also the new top-of-rack switch, the 93-180YCEX. On the storage front, we'll talk about the VMAX 3, where there have been a lot of introductions around all-flash. We've had a lot of the hybrid arrays, but now we're introducing all-flash arrays into that family. Also, we have the Unity array that was released, and that comes in both hybrid and all-flash versions. And then we'll talk about the extensions, the additions to our scale-out NAS environment, where we've refreshed some of our nodes that we supported, and also introducing one new node. So for the CPU, I mentioned that we supporting the tick-tock effect, and this was a tick. It's the V4 model. So you can see here that it represents the increases in cores and memory speed that we can support up to. Now within the compute offering, we support both B-series blades and C-series rack mount servers. So for the B-series, we've introduced the B200 M4, the B420 M4, and the B260 and 460 M4. The B200 M4 and the B420 M4 are both based upon the new V4 chips at the E5 or 2600 series Intel processors. And the B260 460 is focused on the E7 chipset, which is the 8800 series or the 4800 series. On the C-series side, we introduced the C220 M4 and also the C240 M4. And both of those are based upon the E5 chipset. We mentioned about the new generation of FI to support the 40 gig compute use case requirements that are requiring that high bandwidth 40 gig. So here we have the 6332-16UP. And in addition to the 40 gig compute and LAN structure that it supports, it also supports 16 gig, whereas the previous generation supported 8 gig. And then also we have the 2304 IOM that partners with that. One thing to note here though is that the Gen 3, although it sounds like the direct replacement for the Gen 2, the 6200 series, it is not. It's really meant to be a new add-on FI family that will support that use case for the high compute bandwidth. We offer this today on our vBlock and VxBlock 540 platform. So updates to networking. On the LAN side, we've introduced the Nexus 93180 YCEX, which supports the 48, 10 gig or 25 gig interfaces. And then we have for the 6 uplinks, we support 40 and 100. This switch fits nicely if you need to consider V-scale optionability currently or in the future. Also, another thing to note, with the newer architecture ASIC designs, it's able to fit into a 1 RU elevation rather than a 2 RU. So it saves you a bit of cabinet space and density in your build outs. On the SAN side, we've introduced the MDS 9396. This is the big brother, in a sense, to the 9148S. It's another 16 gig switch. It's built on newer ASICs. And the value for us is that it provides that larger port density without going to very high expense in director class switching. So that's a great fit for our SAN fabric. And it's really useful when you're looking at leveraging storage tech extensions as well for those adding use cases to your existing vBlocks. Because at the end of the day, when you run out of ports, you're done building. Storage arrays. So in the Vmax family, we've introduced some all-flash arrays to our vBlock 740. We already had the 740 out there, and we only had hybrid arrays. So the hybrid arrays we had were the 100K, the 200K, and the 400K. These introductions earlier in the year, we introduced the Vmax 450F and FX and the 850F and FX. And then a little bit later in the year, we introduced the 250F. Interesting to note on the 250, it's based upon a new engine architecture providing a 12 gig SAS backend, whereas the 450 and the 850 and all the other 100, 200, 400s are based upon 6 gig backend structures. Another point on the 250, it fits well at the mid-range entry point. So it steps down, it's a lower offering than symmetric arrays have offered before. And here it provides a nice price point and gives you the luxury of all flash. So it's been a very popular solution for our customers. We've also introduced a new platform, the vBlock VxBlock 350. And within that family, we introduced the Unity, it's based upon the Unity array. So there we have the 300, the 400, the 500, and the 600. And then you can also see that the alternates with the F on them, those are representing the models that are all flash. On this model, it's an extension of the VNX family. It's a new architecture and provides a lot of new performance with that. So it's been a good value for us. It's helped us increase some of our CPU capability within our vBlocks. Also, in the earlier generations, you had to entitle every feature within the array. Within the Unity family, all the common elements are enabled by default with the offering. And then we round this out with, from our storage tech extensions perspective, for our scale-out NAS for Isilon, we've refreshed the S, X, and NL node series, and we've also introduced the HD400. The HD400 was a new addition to support backup and archiving requirements, and has been very popular in that space. So now we're going to step into new features. So for new features, we're going to break these down into 4 sections. First, we'll start talking about platform expansion, and then we'll step into enhanced networking, followed by enhanced data protection. And then we'll round out this section with storage technology extensions. So, as I mentioned, the VxBlock 350 is a new platform release this year. We talked about the storage array and the new hybrid and all-flash versions that were available there. Here, I'd like to talk and focus on the fact that we support up to 256 hosts in the system as a maximum. On the VxBlock 340, we only supported up to 128 servers for the entire system. Also, we support up to 4 UCS domains. And again, on the 340, we only supported 1. So you can see the power of the new storage array has enabled us to double the amount of host count that we can support on this platform. It makes it equivalent to our 500 VBlock and the 700 VBlock families as well. Now, we've already talked about the maximum number of hosts that we can support and the domains. On this slide, I'd like to focus on the fact that the new Unity array comes bundled with all-flash support. So you get the bundling and efficiencies of all-flash, the pricing. So that was not available on the product that we offered, the VxBlock 340. Although EMC at that point did offer an all-flash array, it's not something that we adopted at that point. We did allow customers that wanted all-flash to leverage building out it manually by populating all-flash drives. But there's a significant benefit of going with the 350 for performance and the bundling you get from that perspective. Now on the SAN front, from the fabric perspective, the 340 only supported 8 gig fiber channel infrastructure. On the 350, we've increased that to a 16 gigabit fabric. So you get the benefit of that additional throughput. Now we'll talk about the 740, a true mission critical environment for the company. It's our top end array product family from a platform perspective. And this here, like I mentioned earlier, focuses around the all-flash introductions. Those are augmenting the existing systems that are based upon the Vmax 100K, 200K, and 400K. So, like I mentioned earlier, we introduced the 250, 450, and 850. And the 250 supports 1 to 2 vBricks or engines, as some may know it as. And the 450 is 1 to 4 engines or vBricks. And the Vmax 850 supports up to 8. Another point that you might be interested in here is that as you look at the ENAS data mover capabilities, both the 250 and the 450 support up to 4, and the 850 supports up to 8. The one thing to be aware of, since these are virtual data movers and they're reliant upon the cores within the arrays, to support the maximum configuration of 4 data movers, it requires 2 engines so that you have sufficient core counts, and likewise 8 on the 8 max for the 850, that requires 4 engines so you have the sufficient core count. To me, this is an interesting representation. It's a comparison between the 720 and the 740. And trying to make it apples to apples, this is a representation of the VMAX 20. It's a 9-bay storage configuration that supports 800 terabytes of usable storage. On the 740, the equivalent would be the all-flash 450F. And it's also roughly configured 800 terabytes of usable storage. And to me, it's really interesting that you can take 9 storage bays down to a single storage bay, so gaining a tremendous efficiency in your data center footprint, decreasing the floor space requirements of up to 92%, and reducing your power consumption by 87%. And the fact that you're running all-flash array, it reduces your drive replacements by 98%. And then you get the typical things, which are also critically important, 6x performance and lowering your TCO. So here the focus is on some of the configurations practices that we standardize on. I'd like to point out that on ours, for the scalability and optimization purposes, we require all engines to be configured with the same cache amounts to ensure that linear scale on performance as you're growing your environment. Also, we mentioned on some of the other slides, on these arrays we're leveraging a 16 gigabit fabric. And then another thing that's, to me, is of high importance is the e-management requirement. We focus on e-management because the benefits that provide us are significant, or provide you. In the previous generations, you had to have fiber channel HBAs in the management hosts. And if you had 2 or 3 hosts that you had to support there to provide your availability your availability requirements, that was requiring several HBAs to be supporting that, to do just management, the element management. By moving towards e-management, that's enabled us to eliminate the fiber channel HBA requirements in the management appliances and also simplifies some of the architecture. Here we'll talk about the VxBlock 540 with 40G option. But the one thing I just want to highlight first is, this is an option. It's one of the options within the family. We still offer the VxBlock 540 based upon the UCS Gen 2 family. It's still the mainstay and should support the majority of our use cases, but for those high bandwidth compute requirements, we now offer this 540 with 40G option. So we've talked about a lot of those features. The one thing that I would like to point out here is that if you leverage this option, it removes the 93180 YCEX top of rack switch, and it gets replaced by a pair of Nexus 9332 PQ switches. This is to provide 40 gig capability requirements that are leveraged for the top of rack connectivity. The other point here would be is that even though we've increased the compute options, from a storage perspective, we still support the same Extreme IO 10 terabyte, 20 terabyte, and 40 terabyte bricks. And this system also leverages the scalable AMP that we'll talk about in a little while. So also on this, we've introduced software-defined networking around NSX this past year. So it was interesting to note that NSX came about, it's a combination of VMware's vCloud networking and security feature and also the Nicira virtualization platform. The combination of those two previous packages are what now constitutes the new NSX offering. So NSX is really valuable to you because it creates that entire virtual network. We all enjoy our virtualization of compute in our systems today in the converged infrastructure. So having that virtual routing for layer 2 and layer 3 capable with the inclusion of firewalling is valuable within our environments. It gives you better control and ease of maintenance. The other thing that we derive a benefit from here is the fact that with leveraging layer 3 in the block, because our blocks have historically been layer 2 at the top of rack perspective, having the layer 3 prevents that hairpinning that happens when you have the cross layer 2 networks. The traffic actually had to leave the block to be routed back into the block. So there's benefit there as well. So this page focuses on some of the basics. Today we offer Edge Gateway in either C-Series servers or the B-Series Blade servers within the block. It's been very popular for our customers to choose the C-Series. People like that external isolation to be able to provide that Edge Gateway capability. So for Isilon Tech Extensions, we've had a lot of customers asking us for smaller switch configurations. We had standardized on the 24-port InfiniBand back-end switches, and we have a lot of customers that are interested in 8 nodes or less. So we've taken that to heart and also released the offering for the 8-port InfiniBand switch. And then for the top of rack, we replaced the current Nexus 93, or I'm sorry, we replaced the current 5548 and 5596 switches with the new Nexus 93180 YCEX. We also allow for 8 nodes or less on the front end, and if that is a requirement by the customer, then they can eliminate that 93180 YCEX if there are sufficient ports on the existing vBlock to support that. So we've already talked about the Isilon enhancements. So 2 points to note here: that front-end connectivity for host connectivity is at 10 gigabit. We don't support 1 gigabit. So for data protection, we have done some work around that. We've introduced upgrades around the Avamar, new hardware on Avamar, new hardware on data domain. We've introduced support for Networker to manage your data domain and Avamar backup solutions in some situations. Also, we've introduced the next generation of Recover Point, and also for those virtual machine requirements, we've introduced RP4 VM, and that is supported on vBlocks, VxBlocks, and VxRack products. And then also we've had vPlex upgrades in hardware where we've introduced the VS6. Tech extensions. I know we've talked about tech extensions, and most people look at those as capacity expansions. I just want to highlight the point that they also bring to bear the capability of introducing new use cases that could be supporting databases or other applications. And another point to make about the storage tech extensions: they're fully backed by RCM, Release Certification Matrix. And the value of that is that we've done extensive testing, and they go through regressions every time we want to upgrade our firmware releases. And then another point to note is that they're all, even though they're technology extensions, they're still built on the same standards that are leveraged for vBlocks and VxBlock. This just highlights the fact that now that we allow mixed arrays, one of the things you need to be careful about is XtremIO is a significantly different storage array than VNX, Unity, or Vmax. So if you're mixing XtremIO with either of those 3 other type of arrays, you need to be aware of these configurations. These things are managed at the host level. So when you have environments that have these different arrays pointing LUNs to a common host, there can cause some disparities, and you need to manage to these settings to get the optimal LUN performance. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and talk about management. In management, we'll break that into 2 sections. We'll talk briefly about the scalable AMP, and then we'll step into IPv6. For the AMP2S, that configuration scales from 2 servers to 12 servers. Our recommended default is 3 servers. 3 servers aligns with VMware's cluster standards, so we recommend that. Also, on the scalable AMP, you have the ability to scale your storage from the base 8 terabytes up to the maximum configuration of 150 drives. IPv6. In the industry, the network of all, internet of all, we've been consuming IP4 IP address space, and there are many people that are coming to us saying that we're exhausting those spaces and they need the capability of IPv6. So knowing that, we have worked to introduce IPv6 into the VX and VBlock families for the 350, 540, and 740. Another point is that in order to sell to the government, you need to have IPv6 capability, and we are now on the RSA registry, or the GSA. Where are we going next? We're always working with Cisco on new switch releases. We have many that we're working on now with them, and you'll be seeing some of those introduced in the next 12 months in our product offers. We work very closely with them to determine which are the most effective switches and bring the best value to our offerings. Also, in addition to that, we'll be introducing the VMAX 950 on the 740 and the Unity 350, 450, 550, and 650, the new arrays on the Unity family, which are only offered in Flash. And then the Isilon Gen 6, which is new releasing platform as well, which also features an all-flash version for that. The one thing to note about the 950, the Unity, and the Isilon, well, Isilon is part of a tech extension, but the 950 and the Unity arrays will also be introduced in our storage tech extensions. And then you can also expect to see improved automation and orchestration in our management platform, our management software, over the next several months. Okay.